Welcome back to True Story with John Gibson. Today's guest is Eugene Bidchenco. Eugene, thank you so much for joining me.
How's it going, John?
And going well. Again, it's my pleasure to have you today. Did I say the last name correctly?
Yes, perfect.
Awesome. So when we were offline, I made sure that I was trying to enunciate it correctly with Eugene. Now, to provide some context, he and I have trained together off and on at Valko Bjj here in Chicago for like 3 years, which is crazy between our injuries. But believe it or not, I've never had to address the man by his last name before today, so I had to make sure. But with that, man, I feel like maybe that's a relevant kind of place to start. Do you mind kind of sharing a little bit about yourself? And then, again, we met through jiu-jitsu. So like, how did that journey start for you? Because you're so accomplished and I love your game. So it'd be great to just, pick your brain and learn a little bit more about that.
Oh, thank you. Well, one of the things we also touched upon was injuries, because injuries is something that's been plaguing like you and I for a very long time. When you do a lot of sport, not even on a professional level, but when you do them seriously, you just tend to get injured.
Yeah.
And Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, it's funny, but it's because of the injuries I started Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It sounds completely out of left field, but historically, I've always been an athlete. I grew up in Moldova, actually, which is a small European country. And my whole life was dedicated to basketball. I was in a specialized school for basketball, played for the national team. I turned pro when I was 17 in basketball. And that's how kind of I trained my entire life, 2 training practices a day, 5 days a week, 6 day, only 1 practice. And then, so because I was in a specialized school, so from basketball, I acquired a bunch of injuries. And when I was, I believe about 25, 26, I tore my ACL, and then I tore my meniscus again. And so my knees started to basically swell up, and I couldn't play basketball. I couldn't play anything that was kind of remotely, you needed to do the lateral movement, because my knees would just flare out. And then the cherry on the cake was I started picking up skiing, and I was doing like moguls, which is also not super awesome for your knees. And I had another injury from moguls. So, okay, basketball, can't play volleyball, I can't play soccer, I can't play anything that requires that. And then there was just Olympic champion Kolban MMA, and I joined the guy. And the problem with MMA and Muay Thai, for guys like myself who are not professionals and don't actually want to compete, but I have a competitive spirit, so I actually want to go, and I want to go and like kill another person, like, and try to just my best. I don't want to 50% or 70%. And when you're a working professional like myself, and you go and you train and you go in the ring, you get beat up, the whole body's sore. Like sometimes I have client meetings, I have like I have bruises, and that just even cause injuries as much as you can even get concussion, if you're not careful. And so I felt like something was missing, because I couldn't really compete daily and go like 100%. And just so happened, we had a guy from Alliance coming in and on the side teaching a little bit of jiu-jitsu. And I was like, oh, let me see, what is this? These guys are grappling and spats. What's going on here? And I tried it. I was like, wow, this is pretty awesome. And I remember that I also tried out judo for several years before. It's a little different, obviously, but I got that renewed love for grappling. I was just like, wow, this is pretty awesome. And I was sold right there and then. And the guy, funny enough, the professor who was teaching there, he's like, listen, don't kid yourself. You're going to quit Muay Thai and you're going to join the school full time, because I see how you're sucked into jiu-jitsu already. So that was my journey, and I really wanted to join the jiu-jitsu, and I went to my first school was Marcelo Garcia, and I was so intimidated that to really just go there, that I remember standing on that block in Manhattan and looking at the guys going in and some of them going out. And I was so timid to go in. And I went over there, and then even at first time, like I'm like, oh, these guys, like they're not super nice because they were super busy at the time. And I almost like decided like not to go, but then I kind of overpowered myself and I went back, and here I am 9 years later, still going strong, training 5 times a week, pretty consistently, unless there are injuries. So that's my pretty much jiu-jitsu journey.
Wow, man, what an amazing story. I didn't know so much of that about you. Like I learned a lot right there. I had no idea about the basketball background. So much of that makes other things make sense. It's interesting that you spend your life dribbling and you're used to this kind of stop and go. That's a lot like your jiu-jitsu game. You do a lot of push pull and stuff. It's funny how those things translated for you, but I didn't know about the pre-existing knee injuries either. I thought they came later. Wow, that's really significant. What a cool story. And to start at Marcelo's school, amazing. Like what an amazing foundation that had to have been. And it's so cool that you overcame that first little that fear too,
You're absolutely right. I think one of the advantages was it was so unreal also because at the time at Marcelo's, Bernardo Faria would teach classes, Marcos Tinoco, and we had a bunch of these black belts. At that time, they were brown belts. Manchi Kara, who won the worlds, Dylan Danis, who won the worlds at brown belt, and a few others. Johnny Grippo joined from Hanzos. So the caliber of jiu-jitsu guys there was just absolutely insane. And you also had exposure to all different games. So you take a class with Marcelo, you obviously you learn guillotine, you learn X guard, single leg X, etc. When you do with Bernardo, like pressure passing, you learn deep half guard. So just the exposure to all these pros, it was unreal.
Some of not only is they some of the most like decorated competitors, but they're also some of the most prolific professors too. They've also turned out world champions themselves. It's amazing. Well, look, you're on that list, man. You had success at multiple levels too, multiple Pan Ams, correct? What was it like taking on the competitive side, transitioning from a hobbyist to someone that's like, I want to really kind of see how far I can take this?
Yeah, I was not once. I was standing there in a dugout, and obviously I compete in Masters division because I joined jiu-jitsu when I was older. Like many of us, discovered it when I was older.
Mm-hmm.
But a few times in my journey when I was standing at that dugout at the big tournament and basically shaking from all the adrenaline and all this anticipation of your body goes into this, really fight or flight mode, fly mode. And I'm standing there and I'm like, what am I doing here? I literally like, what the hell am I doing here?
Yeah.
Like, why am I doing this?
Yeah, I
And then the
understand.
funny thing about jiu-jitsu, you know how it is. You go and you fight and you
Yes.
do well, or even if you don't do well, once the adrenaline dump, once it's over and the competition is over, you're on the way home and you're literally like, oh my God, I want to compete tomorrow. I want to get
Yes.
back. And I want to do either I want to do better or I want to repeat my success. So it's like a drug. You're like, that I don't know, you almost feel like this high of either like winning or wanting to come back to the drawing board and be the best version of yourself and try to, because there's one of the best things about jiu-jitsu is instant feedback, right?
Yes.
Like you don't need someone to I don't need someone to tell me what belt they are. I can roll with that person for 3 minutes, 5 minutes, and I can absolutely tell what belt they are, right?
Right.
So like the constant feedback, you go there and you're like, okay, this is where I stand against my peers,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's something that motivates you to just, work harder and get better.
Yeah. Well, let me ask this too. So transitioning a little bit, but I mean, you are somebody, again, notwithstanding injury, you compete very regularly, every few months at least, several times a year, but you have a full-time career and you're a husband and you're a father. So it's like that plate's pretty like full. How do you balance the remainder of things outside of jiu-jitsu? How do you make all of that work for you?
Yeah, I feel like scheduling is very important. You have to, then you obviously the wife who understands also,
Mhm.
um, very important because like a lot of people say, like for some people, they go to psychiatrists, some people jujitsu
Yeah,
is a
for sure.
session in itself. I think for me, it's really just creating a schedule and sticking to it without, there's a lot of really good books about like creating habits. So my habits are like I know when I train, so in my schedule really hasn't changed. Like for example, currently I work from home Mondays and Fridays, and I work from the office Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So then Wednesday, I would train in the morning, but Mondays and Fridays, I can train at noon, and then I can do open mat on Saturday,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah.
and for example, my wife does Pilates. She loves Pilates. So she will do schedule herself for example, the off days, right? When I'm with
Right.
my son. We have another kid on the way, October. Uh,
Congratulations. I had no idea.
Thank you.
Man, awesome,
Yes,
dude.
a
Yeah.
daughter. So I think
Wow.
that's going to complicate a little bit the situation, but
For
I'm
a little bit.
still,
Yeah.
yes, I'm still going to try to do my best to,
Yeah.
train at least, 5 times a week, like I've been doing for a while.
We got to get that black belt soon because that little girl's going to be beautiful. Good luck.
You're too kind.
I feel like your son's already like he dresses better than me. He's got more style, more bravado. I'm like, that little guy's just got it. Yeah, charisma. That's awesome, man.
Thank
Congratulations.
you.
That's really great.
Thank you.
Awesome. So, kind of, sort of, we touched on it already, but, a little more kind of to the end of injuries. I wanted to pick your brain too, because as a masters competitor, like we all get injured training. That's just something we sign
Yeah.
up for. That's just
Yeah.
part of the journey. But if somebody wants to compete or even train with an injury, what are maybe some of your recommendations? Do you have anything around supplements or any things that you've found that have just been helpful, like for you personally?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm actually very big on body optimization and developing various protocols, whether I'm injured or where I'm just training.
Mm,
And as far as the regimen, there's a lot to talk about, obviously, but I think supplementation is crucial,
mhm,
particularly um, for master competitors,
mhm.
because if you're truly training hard, and as you know, I try to train as hard as I can,
Yeah, you go hard.
particularly
Yeah.
before competitions.
Mhm.
I think there's the big difference, or whether you're going to supplement properly will determine whether you can train the next day or whether you're going to be completely sore and just completely unwilling to even like go and do stuff, right?
Mhm.
So to me, I think one thing I found very helpful, that's the some people question it, but the anabolic window when I'm actually taking various recovery drinks. My favorite is probably Recoverite, which is a powder that is was produced for endurance athletes
Mhm.
to help them recover faster. So those folks that run like Ironmans and whatnot, they swear by it. It's by Hammer Products.
Mhm.
It's called Recoverite. So it's one of my favorite ones. But lately, I've just been using various recovery drinks as long as the ratio of carbs to protein is like 3 to 1, 4 to 1.
Mhm.
And most important thing is to take it within 20 minutes probably of your session. So as
Yeah.
if you work out really hard, you take it. Besides that, I supplement with collagen peptides. I do that to keep my joints healthy, and I make sure that I drink enough fish oil. Fish oil also to keep your joints healthy.
Mhm.
Besides that, is I have my own protocol not to get injured. It doesn't always work out because there are always freak injuries.
Yeah.
But the way I do it, me personally, is that I will always start first 2 rounds with folks, either women or men, who are on the lighter scale, so like a
Yeah.
buck 25.
Yeah.
So usually the lighter ones where I don't need to use a lot of strength, right? And that's not to disrespect the 125-pound
No, I
competitors. I'm
understand.
talking
It's
about
hard.
ahead of time, I'm going to say, hey, do you want to warm up? So I will establish right away. If it's my first or second roll, I will always say, hey, do you want to just roll to kind of warm up? Meaning like a little harder than the floor roll. Like I'm not
Yeah.
going to go really hard. And usually the smaller competitors, and I will not use as much strength as I could potentially could.
Sure.
So I always stick to this because I think the first two rolls with just if you do it like in a fun, playful way, prepares you, it warms you up, etc. To then later to finish strong. So my last rolls are usually I go against the toughest black belts that on the map. So it's kind
Yeah.
of I don't kind of jump off the cliff. I slowly build up towards the toughest rolls.
So
So
smart.
those are just the basic things that I do that I think are crucial for kind of staying healthy and performing well and not getting injured.
Yeah, that's amazing. I know we're kind of running up on time. I do want to ask one more question too, because as you were detailing earlier, some of your earlier exposures to BJJ and your early influences, I wonder, do you have maybe a favorite? Is there someone you love, like that's my favorite person to watch or game to emulate or somebody?
Yeah, yeah, I think I've got a lot of my game from as cliche as it sounds, is from Keenan Cornelius. I think he's
Well, that
one of
makes
the
perfect sense. Yeah, no, I
I
get it.
think one yeah, I think he's one of the most inventive uh people who had enormous impact. And after Keenan Cornelius, I've started to implement more of the new game because I always wanted to have an edge. And one of the things I decided to do early on in my BJJ journey is saying, well, if I'm just going to play the game that everyone else sort of plays, like most common ones, the De La Rivas or
Mhm.
whatnot. If I'm going to play this game that the Masters division in particular play the most, it's not going to provide me with an advantage. But if I'm going to play something that Masters division don't necessarily play much, right,
Mhm.
that's going to provide me some advantage because a lot of the looks that you throw is just will not be there.
Mhm.
They won't be able to properly respond to. So at
Mhm.
first I start picking up like um, even I wanted to do like obviously like a berimbolo was the hot thing. I wanted to do berimbolo, but after I injured myself, I injured my back. I lost flexibility in one of my like hamstrings, so I wasn't able to play that game. But
Mhm.
because I'm tall, lanky, I really combine like a Hamelos game with Keenan Cornelius's game
Mhm.
and combined it together and created my own game out of those two. But as far as the little, I would say the combos and whatnot that I've developed, I got from most of them. I got from either like a lapel guard Keenan's that I then put on my own flavor on top of that. And lately there has been very good competitors on the brown belt level, like Rui Alves, for example, is one of my favorite competitors. He actually just won a brown belt worlds, whom I did the seminars with, and I picked up a lot of stuff
Yes,
from them. So
congratulations. But yeah, by
yeah.
the way, that was an
So
amazing.
I always felt like if I'm going to competition and I'm not going to just like pull into half deep half or like and do something that is completely different from what everyone else is doing is going to provide me with a little bit of an edge. It's been working for me, so I'm sticking to the new school.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely. It's so
Not to say
awesome.
that the old school is bad. Some of the toughest matches I've ever had are the guys who play like a deep half and like over under and whatnot passing. So something like old school, but like very tough to stop. So
Yeah. It's so amazing because as a training partner, I have a unique insight to know, I know what you feel like as you detail that. And it's so funny because earlier in my jujitsu career, maybe my first year and a half, 2 years, I had pretty good success at a white belt with my wrestling background and even an early blue belt. but you always training with you. It was there's never been a role that I've ever won, but moreover, like I didn't feel like it was a sinking ship. You would establish grips really early or wrap something around my or pull my lapel in a way. I was like, and it was exactly as you're saying. I was like so lost. I'm like, what is happening? And all I know is I'm slowly getting sucked in to where you want to put me and then checkmate. So it's so interesting to see how your influences have helped develop that. That's really fascinating. That's so cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Well, with that, let me ask this too. I always try to ask folks if people want to reach out with like questions or contact you or anything like that. Is there a best sort of place to kind of find you from, like maybe social media, anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. Eugene Bidchenco on Facebook, Instagram, and I train at Valko. As you know, our school is one of the most welcoming schools
Yeah.
in the area. Open mass or whatever, any class, people always come by. We always have people coming through. And I'm pretty much always on the mats. So, and always welcome,
Yeah.
so
Thank you so much for finding time for this too. But I loved it. I reserved this too while I was hitting the board and publicly to just thank you for a lot of things, man. You've been a good friend, great training partner. For the world here, Eugene is one of the handful of people that was a stranger. He answered a Facebook post. I said, hey, I need early morning training partners. I work out in the burbs. I have crazy hours. Who can meet me at 6 a.m.? And he left his wife, his son, and he made that happen a couple of days a week for a long time to help me prepare for that nonprofit event out of the goodness of his heart. And he helped develop my game and all those things too, and never hurt me. Just great training partner. So again, thank you, man. Thank you for being you. Thank you for finding the time today. This has just been a great opportunity for me also.
Yes, thank you so much for inviting me. My pleasure. And keep up keep spreading the word. I think what you're doing is very important on many levels, and I very appreciate it.
Man, thank you, Eugene. True story, John Gibson. It's another episode. Thanks again.